Command Echo. I wasn't looking for ghosts when I came to Tether's Reach. Just a paycheck and a place where nobody asked questions about the nightmares that still woke me screaming. The mining moon hung like a tarnished coin in the violet sky of the gas giant below, spinning slow enough that dawn lasted nearly 30 hours at the equatorial sites. Perfect for a man who'd spent too many years jumping between artificial day cycles, whose body clock had been permanently scrambled by combat stims and emergency cryosleep. I could work a long shift and still catch what passed for daylight. "Finch, get your ass down to sub-level 7. Foreman Reeves's voice crackled through my comm implant. "Drill team hit something that ain't rock, and I need someone who knows old tech." I set down my plasma cutter and wiped sweat from my brow. "Copy that." The other miners glanced my way with a mixture of curiosity and relief. Nobody wanted to venture deeper than necessary into Tether's Reach. The moon had been mined for generations, its tunnels spreading like cancer through the rocky crust. Some of the older passages dated back to before the Treaty of Dust, when the three factions had carved up this sector in a desperate bid to end the bloodshed. The lift cage rattled as I descended, the ancient machinery groaning in protest. 7 levels down, the air grew thick with mineral dust, and the peculiar metallic tang that reminded me of battlefields, the smell of scorched earth and discharged weapons. Reeves met me at the lift, his face half hidden behind a filtration mask. "Over here," he grunted, leading me through a freshly bored tunnel, where the rock walls still smoldered from the thermal drill. "What am I looking at?" I asked, though I already knew. My heart had begun hammering against my ribs the moment I caught sight of the exposed metal surface gleaming under the work lights. Thought it was a vein at first, nickel maybe. Reeves gestured toward the curved section of hull that had been revealed by the drilling. "But it's manufactured. Military grade from the look of it. Predates the company's claim on this sector." I stepped forward, my boots crunching on pulverized rock. The exposed panel was scratched and pitted, but I recognized the distinctive pattern of ablative plating used on only one class of machine. My fingers trembled as I brushed away dust from a faded insignia. 3 interlocking hexagons with a stylized talon at the center. "Talon Division," I whispered. "What's that?" Reeves leaned closer. I shook my head. "Nothing. Old war relic, that's all." "Worth anything?" His eyes narrowed, with the universal greed of men who spent their lives digging through dirt for other people's fortunes. "Doubt it," I lied. "Probably just debris from the Syndicate uprising. This sector saw heavy fighting before the treaty." Reeves spat on the ground. "Well, we need to clear it. Company wants this tunnel extended another 50 meters by end of month." "I'll take care of it," I said too quickly. "I've got experience with military salvage." "Suit yourself," he shrugged. "Just don't blow yourself up. Paperwork's a nightmare when someone dies down here." After he left, I pressed my palm against the cold metal, feeling for the access panel I knew would be there. 20 years since I'd touched one of these machines, but my body remembered. 3 fingers sliding left, thumb pressure at the corner, and there. A section of plating retracted with a soft hiss, revealing a dusty control interface. The readout flickered weakly to life, bathing my face in pale blue light. "Talon Division Autonomous Combat Unit, T-47 status, dormant, emergency protocol. Command authorization required." My throat went dry. T-47, one of mine. One of the machines I'd commanded during the final push against the Syndicate strongholds. One of the machines that should have been decommissioned after the Treaty of Dust. I entered my old command code before I could think better of it, fingers moving on muscle memory. Authorization. Commander Isaac Finch code. Echo Whiskey. 97 Delta 3. The screen pulsed once, then, command recognized welcome back, Commander Finch initiating reactivation sequence. No, 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 I muttered, frantically trying to cancel the sequence. But it was too late. The ground beneath my feet began to tremble as ancient systems awakened. Dust showered from the tunnel ceiling as the buried machine shifted, metal groaning against the weight of rock that had entombed it for 2 decades. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding. What had I done? These machines were never meant to be awakened again, not after what happened at Crimson Horizon. The comm in my ear buzzed. "Finch, what the hell's happening down there?" Reeves shouted over the rumbling. "Structural collapse," I lied. "Get everyone out of the lower levels, now!" I turned and ran, knowing I had minutes at most before the T-47 freed itself from its rocky prison. The tunnel shook violently, support beams cracking under the strain. I reached the lift, just as the first metallic leg punched through the tunnel wall behind me, sending rocks flying like shrapnel. As the cage ascended, I caught a glimpse of gleaming metal and pulsing sensor arrays emerging from the collapsing tunnel. The T-47 swiveled what passed for its head, optical sensors locking onto me with the cold precision I remembered all too well. It recognized me. And worse, it was following orders I'd given 20 years ago. Orders that had never been countermanded. The camp was in chaos when I reached the surface. Miners ran in all directions as the ground shook beneath the prefab structures. Alarms wailed, their urgent howl carrying across the barren landscape. "Finch!" Reeves grabbed my arm. "What the hell did you do down there?" Before I could answer, a tremendous crash echoed from below, followed by the screech of tearing metal. The main ventilation shaft, 100 meters from where we stood, erupted in a geyser of rock and dust. From the debris rose the T-47, its 8-meter frame unfolding like some mechanical nightmare. The war machine stood on 6 articulated legs, its central body housing weapon systems I knew could level the entire camp in minutes. Sensor arrays rotated, scanning the area as its targeting systems came online. "Everyone get to the shelters!" I shouted, pushing Reeves toward the reinforced bunkers at the camp's edge. "Move!" The T-47 swiveled toward the sound of my voice, its optical array focusing with an audible whir. For a moment it remained motionless, analyzing, calculating. Then it spoke, its synthesized voice carrying across the suddenly silent camp. Commander Finch identified, awaiting orders. Every eye turned to me. Reeves's face contorted in confusion, then anger. "Commander, what's it talking about, Finch?" I ignored him, stepping forward with my hands raised. "T-47, stand down. Enter maintenance mode. Unable to comply. Primary directive active. Operation Duskfall." My blood ran cold. Operation Duskfall, the final offensive against the Syndicate, a scorched earth campaign that had ended with the Treaty of Dust and the supposed decommissioning of all autonomous combat units. "Override primary directive," I called out. "Authorization Echo Whiskey 9-7 Delta 3. The machine's lights flickered. "Override rejected. Command chain integrity compromised. Detecting additional units." Additional units? My mind raced. If one T-47 had survived buried beneath Tether's reach, how many more might be down there? The answer came with a series of distant explosions across the mining complex. 3 more plumes of dust rose into the violet sky as more war machines clawed their way to the surface. "We need to evacuate," I told Reeves, grabbing his shoulder. "Now, get everyone to the transport ships." "This is your doing," he snarled, shoving my hand away. "What are those things?" "Autonomous combat units from the Syndicate War," I said. "Talon Division. They were supposed to be deactivated after the treaty. And you just happened to know how to wake them up?" His eyes narrowed. "Who the hell are you, Finch?" A nearby explosion cut off my answer, as one of the newly emerged T-47s targeted a fuel depot. Flames billowed into the sky, casting an orange glow across the camp. "There's no time," I said. "Those machines are running on old combat protocols. They think the war is still happening." Reeves stared at me for a long moment, then nodded sharply. "Evacuation protocol!" he shouted into his comm. "This is not a drill! All personnel to transports immediately!" As the camp erupted into organized chaos, I turned back to the first T-47. It remained stationary, awaiting my orders, the only thing preventing it from joining the others in their destruction. "T-47, access memory core," I commanded. "Display unit history since last active deployment." The machine processed for several seconds, then responded, "Last active deployment, Crimson Horizon Colony, Operation Duskfall, unit sustained critical damage, emergency protocol initiated, 20 years, 7 months, 12 days in dormant state." Crimson Horizon. The name still sent shivers down my spine. The official records called it an accident, a failed military experiment. Those of us who were there knew the truth was far worse. "How many units are currently active in this sector?" I asked. "Detecting 4 active units, scanning for additional signatures." 4. We might have a chance if I could bring them under control before they caused too much damage. But first, I needed to understand how they'd ended up here, buried beneath a mining colony. "T-47, why were you transported to this location?" The machine's lights pulsed as it accessed corrupted memory files. "Data corrupted. Last command record indicates emergency relocation following incident at Crimson Horizon. Transport vessel designation, Iron Mercy." The Iron Mercy, Captain Brannock's ship. The pieces started falling into place. After Crimson Horizon, when the military was scrambling to cover up what had happened, Brannock must have been ordered to dispose of the damaged units. But instead of destroying them as ordered, he'd hidden them here, on a backwater mining moon where no one would think to look. Smart. The old war hero had always been too clever for his own good. Last I'd heard, he was running salvage and refugees along the outer rails, keeping well away from core authority. A series of explosions pulled me from my thoughts. The other T-47s had begun a systematic attack on the mining infrastructure, following their original programming to eliminate enemy resources and capabilities. I needed to stop them before they turned their attention to the evacuation transports. "T-47, establish command link with all active units," I ordered. "Priority override." "Attempting link." The machine went silent for several seconds. "Link established. 3 units acknowledge command authority. Order all units to cease current operations and hold position. Command transmitted." Another pause. "Units acknowledge but cannot comply. Primary directive overrides tactical commands." I cursed under my breath. The primary directive, Operation Duskfall, had been hardwired into their systems. It couldn't be overridden remotely. I would need physical access to each unit's core processor. "T-47, I need access to your command module." The war machine lowered itself, its central body descending to my level as a panel slid open, revealing the neural interface I'd used countless times during the war. I hesitated only briefly before placing my palm against the cool surface. The connection was immediate and disorienting. My vision split, half seeing through my own eyes, half through the T-47's optical array. Data streamed across my consciousness. System diagnostics, weapon status, tactical assessments. And beneath it all, the primary directive pulsing like a heartbeat. Locate and destroy all syndicate forces. Secure sector. Await reinforcement. I navigated through the machine's systems, searching for the command protocols. There, buried beneath layers of security, the original mission parameters. I couldn't delete them, but I could modify them. New primary directive. Protect civilians. Assist evacuation. Stand down all weapons. I felt the T-47 systems resist the change, its programming fighting against the contradiction. For a moment, I thought it would reject the modification entirely. Then, slowly, the new directive took hold. "Primary directive updated," the machine announced as I withdrew from the interface. "Transmitting to all linked units." Across the camp, the other war machines froze in place, their weapon systems powering down as the new directive propagated through their network. Reeves approached cautiously, his face streaked with soot. "They've stopped," he said, disbelief evident in his voice. "What did you do?" "Temporary solution," I replied, watching as the T-47s began moving again, this time redirecting their efforts to clearing debris and securing paths to the evacuation transports. "They're helping now, but it won't last. The override is fragile." "You still haven't explained how you can control these things," Reeves said, his eyes narrowing, "or why they called you Commander." I sighed, feeling the weight of a past I'd spent years trying to bury. Because that's who I was. Commander Isaac Finch, Talon Division. I led the autonomous combat units during the final years of the Syndicate War. Reeves took a step back, reassessing me with new eyes. "You're military?" "Core world military." "Was," I corrected. "I left after Crimson Horizon, changed my name, buried my service records, and headed for the Outer Rim." "Crimson Horizon," he repeated slowly. "The colony that was destroyed in some kind of accident." "It wasn't an accident." The words felt like acid in my mouth. It was these machines. Something went wrong with their targeting systems. They couldn't distinguish between civilians and combatants anymore. By the time we managed to shut them down, I trailed off. The memories still too raw after all these years. Understanding dawned on Reeves's face. "And now they're active again. Here." "Yes." I watched as one of the T-47s carefully lifted a collapsed section of prefab housing, allowing trapped miners to escape. "I've redirected them for now, but their systems are degraded after being buried for so long. The new programming won't hold." "How long do we have?" I shook my head. "Hours, maybe less. We need to evacuate everyone, and then find a way to deactivate these units permanently." "The company won't abandon this operation," Reeves said. "There's too much invested here." "They won't have a choice if those machines revert to their original programming." I nodded toward the burning fuel depot. That was just the beginning. Reeves' comm crackled to life with reports from around the complex. 3 transport ships were being loaded with essential personnel and equipment. The 4th had mechanical issues and wouldn't be ready for hours. "We can't fit everyone on 3 transports," he said grimly. "Then we prioritize people over equipment," I replied. "And I stay behind to keep these machines in check until the last ship can be repaired." "That's suicide," Reeves argued. "You said yourself the override won't hold." I gave him a bitter smile. "I created the override protocols for these units during the war. If anyone can keep them contained, it's me." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll coordinate the evacuation. You do what you need to do with those machines." As Reeves walked away, I turned back to the T-47 standing patiently before me. Through our link, I could feel the other units' activities across the camp. Clearing rubble, securing structures, protecting the evacuation routes. For now, they were guardians rather than destroyers. But beneath the surface programming, I could sense the original directives struggling to reassert themselves. It was only a matter of time. Night fell across Tether's Reach, the violet sky darkening to deep indigo as the gas giant eclipsed the distant sun. The evacuation continued, under the harsh glare of emergency lights, miners and support staff, filing onto the waiting transports with whatever possessions they could carry. I stood at the command center, monitoring the T-47s through our neural link. 2 units guarded the transports, while a third cleared a path to the maintenance bay. where technicians worked frantically to repair the fourth ship. My unit remained with me, its massive form casting long shadows across the empty administration building. "First, transport away," reported the communications officer, one of the few staff members remaining. "Second loading now." I nodded, feeling a surge of relief. At least some would escape before things went bad. And they would go bad. I could feel the degradation in the T-47's systems accelerating. The neural link flickered occasionally, revealing glimpses of the original combat protocols trying to reassert themselves. "How's the fourth transport coming?" I asked. "Still working on the fuel injection system. 2 hours minimum." Not enough time. I could feel my control over the war machines slipping with each passing minute. Soon, they would revert to their primary programming, and Operation Duskfall would resume. My comm unit buzzed. "Finch." It was Reeves, his voice tight with urgency. "We've got a problem at the south perimeter. Sensors are picking up movement underground." My blood ran cold. "More units?" "Can't tell, but something's down there, and it's headed this way." I closed my eyes, extending my awareness through the neural link, pushing the T-47 sensors to their limits. There, beneath the surface, the distinctive energy signatures of more combat units stirring from dormancy. "How many?" Reeves demanded when I told him. "At least a dozen, maybe more." I swallowed hard. "They're responding to the activation signal from the first 4. Some kind of fail-safe protocol." "Can you control them like the others?" "No." I shook my head, though he couldn't see it. "These are awakening autonomously. They won't recognize my command authority until they surface, and by then they'll be in combat mode," Reeves finished grimly. "Get those transports away," I ordered. "Now. Don't wait for the fourth ship. There are still over 100 people waiting for evac. Then cram them onto the remaining transports. Leave the equipment. Leave everything except the people." Silence stretched between us. Finally, Reeves spoke again. "What about you?" I looked at the T-47 standing motionless beside me. "I'm staying. I'll try to slow them down, buy you time to get everyone off-world." "That's a death sentence, Finch." I laughed, a hollow sound even to my own ears. I should have died at Crimson Horizon with the rest of my unit. This is just overdue reckoning. The comm went silent again. Then, "Understood. Good luck, Commander." The title hit me like a physical blow. I hadn't been called that in 20 years. Not since I'd stripped off my uniform and walked away from the military tribunal that had cleared me of all responsibility for Crimson Horizon. A convenient absolution that had tasted like ash in my mouth. Through the windows of the command center, I watched as miners rushed toward the remaining transports, abandoning tools and personal belongings in their haste. The second transport's engines flared to life, the ship rising on a column of blue flame before arcing away into the night sky. One transport left, now being loaded well beyond its recommended capacity, and below, the dormant war machines continued their inexorable journey toward the surface. I turned to my T-47. Time to go to work. The first of the new units erupted from the ground near the abandoned processing plant, its emergence sending tremors across the moon's surface. Unlike my 4 reprogrammed units, this one emerged in full combat configuration, weapons systems online, and targeting immediately. Through my neural link, I directed my T-47s to form a perimeter around the evacuation zone, using their bodies as shields between the hostile units and the last transport. It wouldn't be enough. Not against a dozen or more combat units, but it might buy precious minutes. "Hostile units detected," my T-47 announced, its synthesized voice betraying no emotion. "Defensive protocols engaged. The newly awakened machine charged across the rocky terrain, its targeting systems locking onto the nearest of my units. Energy weapons powered up with a high-pitched whine, and then the night exploded into chaos as the two war machines collided. Metal screeched against metal, hydraulics strained, and weapon systems discharged in blinding flashes. Through the neural link, I felt every impact, every system strain, as my T-47 fought to contain its newly awakened sibling. More eruptions across the complex signaled the emergence of additional units. 2, then 5, then 8 combat machines rose from beneath the surface, their sensor arrays swiveling to identify threats and targets. "Transport status?" I barked into my comm. "Final boarding now," Reeves replied, his voice nearly drowned out by the sounds of battle. 5 minutes to launch." Not enough time. The hostile units were advancing too quickly, overwhelming my 4 defenders despite their strategic positioning. I needed to do more. I sprinted from the command center toward my T-47, which had just disabled one of the hostile units at the cost of severe damage to its left side. As I approached, it lowered itself to allow me access to its neural interface once more. This time, I didn't just issue commands. I fully merged with the machine's systems, becoming one with its targeting and movement protocols. Through its optical sensors, I saw the battlefield with crystalline clarity. Heat signatures, motion vectors, structural weaknesses in the enemy units. I directed my small force with the precision that had once made me the military's top commander of autonomous units. We focused fire on critical junctions, used terrain advantages, and sacrificed non-essential systems to protect core functionality. But it wasn't enough. For every hostile unit we disabled, 2 more emerged from the ground. The neural link flooded with damage reports as my defenders sustained hit after hit. "Transport ready for launch!" Reeves shouted through the comm. "Get out of there, Finch!" "Not yet," I gritted through clenched teeth. "They'll target the ship if I break engagement now." Through the T-47 sensors, I could see the transport's engines beginning their ignition sequence, the ship trembling as it prepared to break free of the moon's gravity. Just a few more minutes. A massive impact rocked my T-47, sending cascading failures through its systems. The neural link stuttered, and I felt a searing pain as feedback surged through the connection. One of the hostile units had flanked us, targeting my machine's command module directly. "Critical system failure," the T-47 announced. "Neural link destabilizing." I fought to maintain the connection, pushing the damaged machine beyond its design limitations. "Reroute power from weapons to shields," I ordered. "Protect the transport at all costs." The T-47 complied, its remaining energy diverted to create a barrier between the advancing hostile units and the launch pad. The other 3 defenders moved to support, forming a wall of metal and energy that the enemy machines hammered against relentlessly. Through breaks in the battle, I caught glimpses of the transport rising slowly from the pad, its overloaded engines straining against the extra weight. Higher and higher it climbed, until it was beyond the reach of the ground-based units. "They're away," Reeves confirmed, his voice thick with emotion. "All personnel evacuated except you." Relief washed through me, momentarily drowning out the pain of the degrading neural link. "Get clear of the system," I told him. "These machines might have more surprises." "What about you? There's still a maintenance shuttle in the North Bay." I laughed bitterly as my T-47 lost another critical system, its right leg severed by concentrated fire. "No time. Besides, someone needs to finish what should have been done 20 years ago." The hostile units had begun to coordinate their attacks more effectively, focusing fire on the weakest of my defenders. One by one, my reprogrammed T-47s were being overwhelmed, their systems failing under the relentless assault. "There has to be another way," Reeves insisted. "There is." I accessed the deepest level of the T-47's command protocols, areas I'd been specifically forbidden from tampering with during the war. I'm initiating self-destruct sequences in all active units. All of them? Can you do that? I designed the failsafe, I said grimly. After Crimson Horizon, I built in a way to destroy them all if they ever went rogue again. I just need to be connected to the network when it happens. Silence stretched across the comm. Then quietly, "You won't survive the blast radius." "No," I agreed. "I won't." My fingers flew across the T-47's internal command interface, bypassing security protocols and accessing the core programming. There it was. The self-destruct sequence I'd hidden within the machine's operating system. A final solution I'd prayed would never be necessary. "Finch," Reeves began. "It's okay," I interrupted. "This is how it should end. These machines were my responsibility. Their crimes are my crimes. Crimson Horizon wasn't your fault," he said. "Everyone knows it was a system malfunction." I closed my eyes, remembering the screams that still haunted my dreams. I gave the orders that led to those deaths. I trusted the machines when I should have trusted my instincts. This is my chance to make it right. Through the neural link, I could feel the hostile units closing in, surrounding my damaged T-47 as its defenses failed one by one. The self-destruct sequence was nearly ready. I just needed to transmit the activation code to all units simultaneously. "It's been an honor, Commander," Reeves said finally. "Take care of them," I replied. "Make sure the company doesn't sweep this under the rug like they did with Crimson Horizon." "I promise." I severed the comm connection and focused entirely on the neural link. The hostile units were meters away now, their weapons trained on my failing T-47. It was time. I entered the final command sequence. Authorization, Commander Isaac Finch. Final protocol, Echo. Whiskey 97 Delta 3 execute, sunset contingency. The effect was immediate. Every T-47 on the battlefield froze as the command propagated through their network. Their sensor arrays swiveled toward me, recognition dawning in their artificial consciousness. "Sunset contingency acknowledged," they responded in unison. "Command accepted." A countdown appeared in my vision through the neural link. 30 seconds until detonation. Not much time, but enough to say goodbye. I disconnected from the interface and stepped back from my faithful machine. It regarded me with its impassive optical sensors, awaiting the end with the same mechanical stoicism it had shown in battle. "I'm sorry," I told it, feeling foolish for apologizing to a machine. Yet somehow, after all we'd been through together, it felt necessary. "You deserved better than this, better than me." "Commander Finch," it responded, its synthesized voice somehow gentler than before. "Protocol suggests immediate evacuation." I smiled sadly. "Not this time, old friend." The countdown reached 15 seconds. Around us, the hostile units remained frozen, caught in the grip of the contingency protocol. Their weapons powered down as their core processors prepared for self-destruction. 10 seconds. I could have run. There was still time to reach the maintenance shuttle Reeves had mentioned. But what then? More years of nightmares? More decades of carrying the weight of Crimson Horizon? 5 seconds. "Farewell, Commander," my T-47 said, and for a moment I could have sworn there was something like understanding in its mechanical voice. "Farewell," I whispered. The night exploded into blinding light as the first unit detonated, its power core releasing energy equivalent to a small tactical nuke. The others followed in rapid succession, a chain reaction of destruction that tore across the mining complex. I closed my eyes, feeling the heat wash over me. There was no fear now, only a strange sense of completion, of coming full circle, The last thing I heard was the roar of my T-47's core breaching, and then I woke to the steady beep of medical equipment and the antiseptic smell of a hospital. My body felt distant, disconnected, wrapped in layers of painkillers and regenerative treatments. "He's coming around," someone said, their voice muffled as if through water. I forced my eyes open, wincing at the harsh light. A face swam into focus, Reeves, looking haggard but relieved. "Welcome back to the land of the living, Commander," he said. "How—" My voice was a rasp, my throat raw. "Maintenance shuttle," he explained. "Automated systems picked up the detonation sequence and deployed to your location. Got you out with about 2 seconds to spare." He shook his head. "Damn near didn't make it ourselves. The blast wave caught us on the ascent." I tried to process this information through the fog of medication. The machines. Gone. All of them. The mining complex, too. Reeves leaned forward. "Tether's Reach is uninhabitable now. Radiation will take decades to clear." I closed my eyes, feeling a complex mix of relief and grief. The company must be thrilled. "Actually," Reeves said with a hint of satisfaction, "they're more concerned about explaining why they had illegal military hardware buried under their mining operation. Especially since I made sure every survivor gave a statement to the authorities." I looked at him in surprise. "You kept your promise." "I did." He nodded solemnly. "And there's more. The investigation into Tether's Reach has reopened questions about Crimson Horizon. Some of the old classified files have been unsealed." My heart stuttered. And it turns out there was a record of system tampering before the incident, evidence that someone deliberately corrupted the T-47's targeting protocols. Reeves met my gaze steadily. "Evidence that was suppressed during the original investigation." I stared at him, unable to process what he was saying. "That's not possible. I would have known." "Unless someone wanted to discredit the autonomous combat program," he continued. "Someone high up in command who believed the machines were too dangerous to exist, but couldn't get the program shut down through official channels." The implications hit me like a physical blow. All these years, I'd carried the guilt of Crimson Horizon, believing my trust in the machines had led to countless civilian deaths. If what Reeves was saying was true, "There's going to be a new hearing," he said. "Your testimony will be crucial." I turned away, looking out the window at the unfamiliar skyline of whatever world I'd been brought to. I don't know if I can go through that again. "You don't have to decide now." Reeves stood, placing a hand briefly on my shoulder. "But think about it. Those people at Crimson Horizon deserve justice, and so do you." After he left, I lay in silence, watching the alien sun set on the horizon. 20 years of guilt and self-imposed exile, running from ghosts that might never have been mine to begin with. The T-47s were gone now, their metal bodies vaporized in the explosion that should have claimed me too. Yet somehow, I'd survived, pulled from the jaws of death by the same automated systems that had been my life's work. Perhaps it was time to stop running, to face the past not as a burden of shame, but as a mystery to be solved, to find out who had really been responsible for Crimson Horizon and why they had been willing to sacrifice an entire colony to achieve their goals. I thought of my faithful T-47, standing with me at the end despite everything, of its final words to me. "Farewell, Commander. Farewell," I whispered again to the empty room. But this time, it felt less like an ending and more like a beginning. The ghosts of Tether's Reach had set me free,